Thank you. So we'll call the meeting to order. So, Mr. Brick, could you do the roll for us, please?
Selena Costabella, absent. Adrian Dominguez, absent. Rodolfo Guajardo,
Here.
Armando Garza, absent. Joe Barron, absent.
Resign?
Jeffrey Puig, present. Huh?
Did we sign?
Mr. Barron resigned.
Oh, okay, well, that'll come out in the communication. Straight, David Akers,
Present?
Salvador Mercado, absent. Felix Canales,
Present.
Rafael Tawil.
Never here.
We have
I need to
4 plus a new
Yes,
representative. And your name, sir?
Valentín Jorge Cuellar.
We have a quorum.
Very good. Secretary reports quorum, so we'll proceed with the agenda. So we have some visitors. Let's ask you to introduce yourself, please.
Hello, I'm Priscilla Iglesias. I'm the Executive Director for Laredo Main Street.
And my name is Jose Ceballos. I represent Baskin, which owns the La Posada Hotel.
Thank you. Welcome. So, are there any general citizen communications for the evening, for this meeting? Hearing none, we'll move on. So, you all have a copy of last meeting's minutes. If you could briefly review those, please, and Chair will hear a motion to submit into the record and approve meeting minutes from last time. Do we have a motion to?
I move to accept the minutes as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Wig. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor of submitting minutes from last meeting as stated, signify with aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to move up item number 6, discussion possible action. Number 2, the discussion of an ad hoc committee for the downtown parking in light of our guests.
okay, does that motion require a vote, or can we just?
It does.
It does. Okay, so,
Second, yeah.
okay, motion on the floor is to relocate item number 6 to next on the agenda.
I will second.
Okay, we have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor with aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. So, you're welcome to proceed.
Thank you.
I guess I'll lead off the discussion. As part of the downtown parking study that was completed last year, there was a recommendation, well, before I get to that, I guess, if any of you can recall, back in, I think it was August or so, was it August, we raised the rates downtown for the parking, and it was subject to review by a committee as recommended in that parking study. Okay, so this is our attempt to follow the direction of that study that was done. Like I said, they suggested a committee just to look at what the effect was of raising those rates, whether they're helping or not, whether the rates need to be extended to other meters or cut back, or the hours, et cetera, et cetera. That's the intent of the parking committee, all right? In discussing this with administration in Laredo, we also talked to our city secretary and our legal department. And there's, I guess, a couple ways we can proceed with this. The one that I'm suggesting is because, where is it? your, the, I don't know if you call it your charter, but your directive as the ordinance as a transportation committee, parking is already under your purview. It's part of your things to look at, the bridge and all the other traffic things related. So it's already part of your directive to look at parking fees. So in line with that, we discussed it with the legal department, and we thought the easiest and I guess just to get this going, fastest way to get it is to form not an ad hoc committee, but a subcommittee to this committee. In other words, if you want to appoint, say, 3 members or 5 members, you know, which I think we're a total of 9, something that would give you, it doesn't really have to be an odd number, it could be 2 or 3, whatever you want, to bring the recommendations, and then Mr. Ceballos and Priscilla Freire, Iglesias, I'm sorry.
Yes, it's okay.
Won't forget again. They can be very, very valuable to this because they have a vested interest in the downtown area, is that they can bring the topics that they feel affect the downtown merchants and everything, and then that subcommittee could look at those things. And then once they look at it, then they would bring a vote to the main committee. The other option that we can look at is if you want to go back to your councilman and councilwoman as needed, and see if they want to form an ad hoc committee. But that would take the council action, council vote, and that kind of thing. But what I'm trying to stress is that parking has already been delegated to you.
Mm-hmm.
So to form another committee, an ad hoc committee just to look at parking, I think is kind of counterproductive or a duplication of efforts because you're already delegated that right. So those are the 2 ways that we can go. I'm advocating first one, this has already been taking quite a while. We didn't have meetings for a couple of months, so I think we get it going as fast as possible because we're supposed to be reviewing those numbers as we go. And I'll let Mr. Ceballos and Ms. Iglesias pitch in as you guys see fit.
Okay, before we do that, just a couple clarifications. So the question, if I understand correctly, is do we just include these topics in our normal meeting of the TTSA?
Right,
Or-
as advocated or promulgated by that advisory committee, once they get input from the community. In other words,
I'm not following, I'm
okay,
sorry.
look, you appoint 2-3 members.
But why do we need to do that? Why don't we just include it in the agenda of
Well,
this
I
meeting?
guess you could do that, but like I said, the report stressed that a committee should be formed just to look at that. It could be part of this if that's what you feel about it, so.
I just, what draws me to ask that question is it's a challenge to get everyone together to begin with. To have a second set of meetings
We discussed
seems
that, yeah, we discussed that.
seems redundant, and it seems like we could just include it as a standing topic in this committee.
That's also a way to do it, yes.
I think for Main Street, what we are trying to do is get the representation from the stakeholders and businesses that are in the downtown area, because that's where the decisions that are made at not only this table, right, but at any city level, can either have a positive or negative effect on the way business is going in the downtown area. The downtown area, as we already know, is a fragile area of our downtown, and so we just would like to make sure that we have stakeholders, as it recommends in the study, to have stakeholders involved in the look back time period of when these decisions are being made, so we can go back and say, okay, how are customers coming back and telling you that this is affecting the way that they shop, the way that they buy, the way that they come and visit your establishment. And so, and if I'm not mistaken, in the study, it does request that stakeholders be involved in, at least in discussion, regarding decisions and, decisions being made from this, or recommendations from this study. So if there is a recommendation that you guys are gonna move forward from this study, it does request that we talk to stakeholders and discuss these topics with them prior to any decisions, going forward, let's say to council or anything like that.
So has this committee been provided this report? I missed the last meeting, so if that was part of it.
This one,
Yeah.
we discussed it, I guess,
A few months ago.
August or so, yeah.
Okay.
It's available online. If you want to, I can have Erica mail you.
No, if it's available, if it's posted, we
Yes,
can.
it's posted on our website. The other reason I was pushing, wrong word, I was advising of 2 or 3 members is that so that they can meet individually with whatever, without having to post and have a, quorum somewhere and then have to post a meeting, that kind of thing. You'll be more freely to meet and get, more stakeholder input.
I want to reiterate, I think I've expressed, Priscilla and I expressed this before when we came before you several months back, but I just keep in mind, right, so this is a relatively new study. It's already taken us 6 months to form a committee, which is why I think dedicating stakeholders to an advisory committee is purposeful because they have a stake in it, right? So, not that you don't, but I think it's important to get the folks that are gonna be affected involved in the process. There's a look back period that we haven't initiated for the fees the rates that went up, right? So the businesses there's a process that needs to happen where you look back to see what's the effect, the economic effect, maybe nothing and maybe something. The other piece of it is there's like wayfinding that needs to be recommended. You're gonna get recommendations from staff, but it would be good to get your stakeholders to actually tell you what's truly the potential best route for pedestrians or for vehicular traffic. So, Priscilla said it, but the impression is get the stakeholders involved. I think there's a very purposeful reason to try to get them involved because they're the ones that are going to live through the decisions on a very direct level. And it's not to say that you're not capable or you don't have the authority. It's just getting stakeholders to become part of the process. That is impressed in the study very heavily is to get with the folks that are impacted.
Thank you. So if we would choose not to create a subcommittee, there wouldn't be anything stopping us from asking for volunteers, members of the committee, or assigning the task to members of the committee to go and meet with those stakeholders, correct?
No, that's basically what the subcommittee, it'll be as formal as informal as you want.
Yeah.
But you could appoint, X person, you go meet with them or something like that.
It appears that the quorum is a problem about getting things done. So if you have these committee members volunteer, they would have more commitment as to attending and participating in meetings, whether if you do it at large, the tendency to not have a quorum has been the problem for the past.
Yes.
And I would just like to interject a little bit. Main Street would be happy to help facilitate you all to get the stakeholders together and have the conversation. We do this, we have downtown business meetings where these topics are discussed and stakeholders are already gathered and it's a place that we could invite you all or to be a part of that, but through this type of this avenue, right? So Main Street can always help facilitate that for you all so that it's difficult to go, our district is so big, our downtown district is so big, it's almost impossible to hit everybody, right? But we have those connections and relationships with downtown.
Do you already have a committee established, or are those meetings?
These are broad topics. We talk everything from parking. It's really stakeholders getting.
No, but what I'm asking is, are the
They
stakeholders?
would come from that group.
Mhm.
From the majority of the group that's there. That would,
Because, the only thing, we said it last time, if, I don't know how good of an idea it would be to have one and then another one, because the way you're at least explaining it is that then everybody from a lot of different committees need to participate in that meeting because you have planning and zoning, you have transportation, there's a lot of people that needs to get to be involved in order to find ways to solve the problems that downtown has.
Yeah, so those are just our Main Street meetings that we host, right? But this is very specific to parking and the parking study. So what I mean by help facilitate that is that we can use the group that we've already helped kind of develop of stakeholders and let them know, hey, be involved in this so that you guys wouldn't have to do the groundwork for that. And make sure that committee or whatever comes out of this, that it has a good handful of stakeholders, not just,
So the subcommittee wouldn't be able to take any action.
No, that would.
No,
Right.
be here.
So the quorum's gonna have to be present regardless. The subcommittee would basically be informational.
They would just
Here-
gather all the information and then hopefully filter it to whatever they think is germane after having met with the stakeholders.
And then bring it to
And
this
then bring it
meeting.
here, then that's where you would vote on it, and then we could take it on to council.
And what does that entail, like the cost of the meters, or what is it to, they're trying to do? Lower the price of the meters, raise the
The-
price
They
of the
went up.
meters?
It addresses quite a bit of things.
yeah, the thing that came up, the reason why this came up was a change of meter price and time. And so none of the stakeholders in Main Street
They don't like it?
No, we were not even aware that this was gonna be brought up to council, so we had no chance to, whoa, hold on, how is this gonna affect, business? And there was never that opportunity to have that
It was
discussion.
just done.
There's
It
a-
was done.
Yeah,
So then-
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, and then, the study was put out and to the public almost the same time. So we're barely getting the information from the study, and then we see that there's a recommendation to have a subcommittee with stakeholders to have these discussions prior to these prior to these decisions going, as far as to council. So that's when we said, okay, let's get our councilmen together, let's figure out how we can have a look back period on the decision that was already made, but also have a committee that can look at any future recommendations that you all might make here and have those discussions so that we're not, playing catch up every time there's a,
Was it a big jump?
I believe it was 25 cents.
Yeah,
From what to what?
And,
50 cents to 75 cents, something like that.
An hour?
mhm.
And the hours.
So the owners of downtown, the people that you all represent don't like that, or
It
they're not,
varies.
they're not
It
for
varies.
it,
There are
or
some
they're-
I
people
think
that are okay with
the
it.
main thing is that they weren't prepared for it, where,
Yeah.
it was kind
Yeah.
of rushed.
The study,
Pointed out.
that's just one part of it, right?
Yes.
There's other things that,
Others.
like the wayfinding, like, we need to start with the
And there-
wayfinding. We need to, work on that.
It suggested converting spaces to more parking. We're working on an app for that downtown.
So here,
So many things to it.
here's a suggestion that,
Okay.
go ahead. The suggestion I like the idea of forming a subcommittee. And my recommendation would be that the subcommittee consists of one member of this board and two stakeholders that chosen through Main Street or however they want to choose two stakeholders. Then we have one alternate member from this board and one alternate stakeholder. Those stakeholders won't vote on items that would be brought forward to this committee, but at least that would give us two people that could go to meetings with three stakeholders. And at the worst case, let's just say I was one of the members, you were one of the members, then I could make it, you're there to go through the meeting, they have two available. Then the discussion is had on a smaller level about whatever their issues are. We talk about it and say, okay, you know what? I think it's a good idea that we bring that issue forward to this committee. So now, one or two of our members are a little bit more educated in what they want as opposed to just presenting at our meeting.
Sure.
And it's not tightly regulated meetings. They can have meetings separate and tied, have discussion. Then the item is brought forward to this meeting. So that allows the stakeholders to become involved and allows one to two of our members to be present.
Jeff, that was exactly what I was gonna suggest, is that we do a hybrid. If we can't have a separate committee, then at least include us in the subcommittee if it's permissible under whatever structure you all have.
And I would support a subcommittee of that level, because at least it allows one of us or two of us to be present, to have a discussion with them separately, understand it, then be able to come explain it to the group and say, look, this is something that I've looked at or you've looked at, and those that might be interested in working on something like that. But no decision is made until it's brought to this whole
Here.
group before. I'm not completely in favor of a complete ad hoc committee, letting that run by itself, but absolutely in favor of a subcommittee where they are actively involved.
Yeah, as you describe it, Mr. Secretary, I think it makes a lot of sense. My hesitation is concern for commitment and further delays in facilitating this to happen. This is an important aspect. We want to, and my lean in saying, well, let's just include it here is to facilitate. In my mind was to facilitate faster response, continuity, just given the fact that there is, not with anyone present here today, but perhaps with those that are not present here today, making sure that you'll commit to
To the meeting.
to the meetings and to
You
our
don't show
responsibilities. If there are interested parties
Then-
to do this, then I'd say let's do consider. I mean, again, this is open discussion. Everyone's opinion matters, but that we, as you describe it, I like the way that sounds. If there are interested members that will commit
Yeah.
and will follow through.
It's up to you.
I do want to bring up just one point, and it's really more semantics, so hopefully you'll see beyond that. Is, since this is technically, we're gonna call it a subcommittee, that means it's a smaller piece of the whole. You guys are all sworn in and appointed by your councilman. So technically, what we should call is, you have your subcommittee comprised of how many members you want, and then you can appoint people to be in an advisory capacity, as opposed to part of the committee, because they're not sworn in committee members. Semantics, like I said.
Right,
It's the
right.
same thing, it's just to make sure that,
Also, I agree with Mr. Garza, but I'd rather see that committee no smaller than 3, no less than 3.
That's why I put a committee of 3.
Like I said, 1 or 2.
It's one of our members, an alternate of our members, and then 2 stakeholders as, what do you call them?
Pro tem or something.
Advisory.
In an advisory capacity.
Mr. Garza, you're still leaving only
Now we're
one.
only on one person.
Mr. Garza, you're still
And then
making
Mr.
one member
Él es
committee.
Mr. Puig.
quick,
Yeah.
Porque tiene la-
Oh, well, you got, that's a, remember I moved here. Mr. Quick, you're still going back to that one member having sole power. That's my concern. I would like that power given to 3 members, not 1. You said 1 and an alternate.
Yes, sir.
I mean, that's the same person.
But they don't have power.
No, they don't have any power.
Well, as committee members, sir.
Yes, sir.
You're saying as committee members,
Yes, sir.
you want 1 and an alternate. I'm saying no less than 3 committee members.
Well, that's fine. We can
here's
put
the
3.
thing.
We can put 3, but will 3 always show up?
I don't
No,
think
but
that's
we can put
feasible.
3. That's
Well,
fine
you
with me
can't
too.
get,
That's
10
fine.
to
I'm
show
good with
up. How can you gonna get, I'm sure you can get 3 to show up. You can't get 10 people to show up. How can you, I'm sure you can get 3. And remember, these people are not gonna be appointed. You're gonna ask for volunteers, Mr. Puig.
but it's you guys.
Right, I know. You're gonna ask volunteers from us. You're not gonna appoint us.
But,
No.
I'm not against having a subcommittee, but the thing is, if they have regular meetings, they could, come to this meeting regularly and.
Sure.
And we could discuss whatever
They
they
have to
feel
discuss.
they need.
Is there
The problem
Yeah,
I
I
see,
understand
the
that.
problem I see is that, we can commit to 3 or maybe the whole committee going to those meetings. If they go, they can still go around this committee because we don't have any power. Talk to the council members and we can say no and they can say yes over there.
That's all the other committees I've been to.
And,
They're open to the public.
then
They're open to the
then the
public.
problem's gonna be that, we're gonna say, well,
Whatever number you recommend, that's up to you guys, you vote on it, whatever. But the main thing is, just remember, we didn't have meetings in November, December. So during those months, nothing would happen with this committee, so time marches on. If you appoint 1, 2, or 3, 4, whatever then you can meet separately and get the ball, time will still keep rolling, as opposed to having to wait for the committee. And if we miss a meeting, that takes 2 months to meet again, so.
Okay, if it would happen that, let's say that there is a 1 appointee and 1 alternate, and neither can make the meeting, can there be a phone call of, hey, can you go in my stead? And is there something that would prohibit
Or
not
we
being
can,
named?
we can
This-
set
this-
3,
this is very
if there's 3
lax.
people, and then it's very lax, yeah, it's not,
Okay.
it's not a regulated,
Right.
structured meeting,
Okay.
it's like, if 3 of us are willing to to serve on that, well then, we put 3 in, if only one goes, well, only
That's
one
it.
goes, and that's fine too. And then we have 2 from the public show up, and they're in an advisory role only.
Right.
You know, it's just
I mean,
semantics.
you could put 3 people,
Yeah,
one shows up,
yeah,
and
we
one
can put
shows
3.
up. You're still
All
okay.
3 show up,
And then
it doesn't matter.
if I can just interject, I don't see this being as, this is kind of on a case by case, depending on what you all make recommendations or what you guys go regarding this, parking study. So if you guys were to say, hey, we wanna do wayfinding, and you guys go to, city council and do that, we would have a discussion with the group, the subcommittee, and all of that would happen. I don't see it being like an every month, looking.
Doesn't it flow the
It's-
other direction? Doesn't it come from the stakeholders to
Yeah.
us?
Yes,
Okay, so we
yes.
wouldn't be seeking out certain.
No, but
Okay.
because the way it happened in the past, that's kind of how it managed, right? But what I'm saying is, I don't see it being a monthly, where a board member, it might or might not, just depending on the case, the recommendation that they're working on. So I don't know if I'm explaining myself
So-
correctly. It's very.
But just
The- the
seems
way-
in
the
that
way-
case,
the way I
just bring it
Then,
to us.
yeah.
Yeah.
The way I envision it is the study recommends several things, okay? And raising the costs and the time was just one small phase of the whole study. But part of that little part that we did, recommended that we go back and reevaluate to see if raising that 25 cents was a good thing or not. It may come out that it's not. That raising the hours till 9 o'clock wasn't a good thing. So that needs to be revisited. But as part of that, the study had a lot more recommendations. This was only one piece of it. So they're very familiar with the study, and they would say, you know what, these are the ones we think are the next ones we want to do. And that they would meet with that subcommittee, 1, 2, 3 people, and say, let's work on these 3, 4, 5 things now. And that would be it. It's just a way of getting everybody involved, and this is important for us, or this had an adverse effect that nobody thought about, and now they're gonna tell you about it. That's the whole point.
Okay. Okay.
Could it, sounds crazy, couldn't we just request an advisory committee of some of the
Attend this meeting.
of the shareholders to attend our meeting? I mean, you guys, we say, okay, we'll put you as an advisory role for the downtown area, and say, you all talk and then bring it to us. I mean, that's
Send a
another way to do it.
representative, yeah.
I said,
No.
the reason we discussed is if you have 1 or 2 people, you're not subject to a quorum and an agenda, posted and all that. That's the only reason. If you want to keep it formal and you ask them to come and bring you their stuff, then you cannot meet with them separate and aside. You'll have to be here at this meeting, so. That was the only reason, but whichever way you want to do it.
Mr. Atkins, I tend to agree with Mr. Canales. Our function is advisory. These meetings are not closed. Open to the general public. If they have a problem, they can go, like somebody said, through their council person or come to us. That's the way all the committees that I belong to work. I mean, we don't have separate committees. We're not diluting here the time and effort. And we're open to suggestions. We hear everybody has an equal vote. Why make it more cumbersome?
No, like I said, this requires some looking into, like the numbers and stuff, how much revenue we're generating. So if you want to bring it here, or you'll need to be prepared beforehand, we can give you the numbers, but you'll have to. If you have a subcommittee, that's their only job is to look at parking. They can do that on their own, and then they bring you the recommendations. But like I said, whatever way you want to do it, it's up to you.
Well, let's call for a motion. Put it
Well-
on for motion and move.
What we could do is every time they meet, if they let us know in advance, we can go and, a few of us and meet with them and see what,
That's up to you.
because if they're not meeting regularly and they have different
It's
times and-
it's really the same thing. If they have an event and they invite you, and 2 or 3 of you go, that's the subcommittee.
but that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, however you want to handle it.
Let me ask this, of the members that are present today, is anyone interested to serve on the ad hoc committee?
I am.
Okay.
I'd be willing to help in any capacity, whatever.
If we can solve a problem.
As a subcommittee?
We solve a problem.
I think it's
I
important
have
for
no-
us, you know, hearing this need, I think it's important for us to open a path of least resistance for the stakeholders to communicate with this committee. You know, I understand the point of if there's not review beforehand, it all comes down to the meeting itself to hear the information for the first time. What's probably being perceived as pushback on my part of not forming the committee is I'm just trying to keep it efficient. I'm just trying to keep it so that it's, you know, we don't have further delays, and I do understand the point that we haven't met in a while, and there are delays there, but regardless, it's going to come down to there's got to be a quorum and there's got to be a vote for action to take place. So either way, there's
But
still
if it's informal,
that piece of it, but for us to make the
no,
recommendation.
for us,
yeah.
you know, we have no choice.
It's your committee. Today you'll be choosing a chairman, and the same way you choose that, you choose this. We're here as an advisory part of what you do, so it's kind of the same thing, so it's up to you how you want to handle it.
Would the stakeholders have a preference? If they send a member as an advisory appointee or more than one on a regular basis, or would they rather us come to them?
I think for the stakeholders, it's they just want representation. I mean, they just want the opportunity to have the discussion prior to you know, decisions being made. So if they can be, you know, if you guys appoint 2 stakeholders from downtown, and you know, we can help you figure who those 2 stakeholders are, and they can come to these meetings regularly and discuss the needs of the group, then yeah, I mean, I think it doesn't matter if they go to you or you go to them. It's just a matter of
Is there enough? I guess is there enough volume of? Are there enough actionable items to where it would be a standing agenda item, or it would
Not
be
for
an
every
occasion?
month, it would be like once
Okay.
a
There would be
quarter.
opportunity to, as far as inclusion on the agenda, question on agenda. So as far as so if it's an occasional inclusion in the agenda of this meeting, there's like a 2-week prior notice.
No, but was it by the Friday before?
The Friday, yeah, we post on the
Okay.
Friday, yeah.
72 hours.
Okay.
So, Mr. Akers, so, let me explain what's gonna happen, like, if you form a subcommittee. We're gonna go back, tell everybody, they're gonna, this is gonna be entertained through this committee. We're gonna get a large group together and say, let's look at the study, what do we need to report back, what are we interested in? And if there's 2 or 3 people, whatever the number is, that comes back to this committee, we would bring that back, right? So form, in terms of form, that would come back, it would get put on the agenda for you all to consider what we come up with, and then you guys would act on it, right? That's in practice how this is gonna happen, because there's plenty of people that are waiting, more than 20 that would probably come to a meeting to talk about parking rates.
Yeah, no,
lakeside.
well, I think what we're saying is, within that group of individuals, there are some appointees
Sure.
that group decides upon.
Yeah,
And then we open up an agenda opportunity
Correct.
to attend as you indicate that you would like to attend, and put it on the, and so I don't know, it seems like it works to me. Is there, I guess the missing piece would be that this committee wouldn't hear all of the arguments or all of the pros and cons sitting in that discussion with that group.
Right.
This is,
We would only hear the final
That's-
recommendation.
that's
Right.
fine.
Right.
Right.
But this is what I think it's happening. I think what they're asking for is for a subcommittee and for them to discuss whatever they need to discuss and find solutions to whatever their needs are, and go and not bypass, but you know, just find a way to do it faster and recommend it to the council so that they can take action. So basically what they're looking for is that not authority, but that,
Formality.
yeah. That's basically what they want. So we wouldn't look at parking, they would take care of that.
Right.
I don't know if it's
I think
possible or not, because then
Well-
they would need to, I mean, downtown is only represented by one city council,
Yeah.
even though everybody's interested in finding a solution for what's going on downtown. I mean,
It's the mainstay of the comprehensive plan, I mean, the revitalizing downtown, so the whole city is invested in it.
Yeah.
It's not-
But regarding parking, they want to take it and go direct.
Yeah. Not generally, right? Not all of the city of Laredo, just whatever pertains to the parking study for downtown.
That was our
But you're-
original request, what he
Yeah.
just described, but so we were asked to do it through this
Through
committee.
this
Yeah.
That's why we're here.
That's it. So if we, if you can call it relinquish downtown, and if they put parking meters on Del Mar, then they would come to us. But downtown would go to that subcommittee.
Well, it
That's
would,
basically
if it was an ad hoc subcommittee, then they
That's why I-
would give them that authority, but if it's just a subcommittee of
They would
this
still
group,
need to come here.
then they would still.
Well, even the ad hoc would still have to come here, would it not?
No, an
No.
ad hoc
No.
takes away our
They will be
authority,
directly under council.
and they would be directly under council. We just relinquished the authority for downtown parking to an ad hoc committee. And then the ad hoc committee would then be formed by members of council that would each select their own
So
member.
they would appoint.
And they would,
It's only for that subject.
hopefully they would get the ear of the council to say, appoint a stakeholder on that committee. I mean, like right now, they have the authority to go to their council and appoint a stakeholder from downtown on this committee.
Right.
But they want to look more macro, or, at their area and be the focal there and not really discuss the other stuff, the whole general city stuff. I mean, that's a way to do it, is through that. The only thing but having a subcommittee under this group would mean that, when they would meet, we would be invited and we would listen in and add input. And then as a group, that group of whoever of subcommittee would then say, you know what, that is a good point, and I've listened to y'all, I'll support it, bring it to the committee.
And if we don't, like this past 2 months, that's what they're arguing.
Yeah, because then
saying,
they have to wait, and they didn't get a quorum.
We waited
They-
2 months
They
and
can't have anything on the
we need to
agenda.
act.
Yeah,
They just
that's
delay,
what they're
delay, delay. Where they could still move forward in a subcommittee setting, say, okay, this is where we want to go forward with.
Exactly.
What if flat tire today, we wouldn't be meeting.
Yep. Well, I
So-
don't know,
so-
I'm
so
sure they have talked to council members, and I'm sure someone recommended them
To come
to
through this
recommend
committee.
to us that it should be an ad hoc.
Personally, my lean would still be that there would be a filtering through this committee.
Okay.
If we could, I hope we can do it in a way that does not hinder, action being taken or progress being made on. But don't we accomplish all of those if we do a single member volunteers to say, okay, I'll come, we'll send a member to meet with the stakeholders when they meet and hear? Or does that have to be the ad hoc committee to be established in order to do that?
I think we would be replaced by them, by the city.
No, you're basically saying what it is, except the subcommittee is just one person now, that you send one person, it's the same thing. We're talking the same thing, just labeling it a different way.
I just want to make sure I understand more than anything. But
It could be a revolving subcommittee, one time Jeff goes.
if we appoint a member, whether it's a rotating member,
It's your committee, the ordinance has you over parking, and this is where we're at.
and that's what we're trying to get through. And I just want to make sure that I understand clearly, because I don't want to close any doors for the stakeholders, and I think this committee should hear what their concerns are.
I guess that's what it's saying is our committee is made up of 9 members.
Mhm.
9 members serve on this committee. By taking and appointing or allowing 3 of our members to serve on a subcommittee, now only 3 people have to get together, or 2 or 1 or however. That's where you take your 9 members to 3 to focus on an item with the, you know, representation from downtown people come in and meet and say, hey, let's meet for lunch, let's talk about, you know, we got this issue. So they would call the subcommittee, and the subcommittee would get together, talk about it, and that subcommittee would bring it to the 9 members. That's from 3 to 9.
relinquishing any
Without
authority.
relinquishing any authority for the
That makes sense to me. That makes sense. That,
Yeah.
that's,
And the city does it, council does it, they have different subcommittees that
Yeah.
1, 2, 3 councilmen sit on, that it might be a part of an other group of people. So, but they're assigned to that subcommittee to go listen in and represent our group.
I think 3's a lot. I think the 1 and an alternate is a good idea.
Well, 3, all it does is says that if one of the 3
Tiebreaker.
can make it,
Yeah.
then great. It doesn't mean that all 3 have to be there. It's just saying, we got 3 people that are willing to help out, you know, serve on that subcommittee. So it would be the downtown merchants' responsibility to contact 1 or 3, or all 3 of them and saying, hey, we're having a meeting, we'd like for you to come and listen in because we got this topic we want to talk about.
Here,
Or hey, I want to get together for lunch, you know, you available, let's go to lunch.
Every week.
You know,
Everybody wants to join.
yeah.
But here,
And that's it. And then it would be brought here.
here's my question to you guys. Are you willing to accept a subcommittee, or do you want the ad hoc committee? That's, you know, that to me is key, because, you know, we need to know where, or exactly what you guys want, so that if you feel, I think you feel more comfortable with the ad hoc, because
Yeah.
you'll be able to talk to council members, you know, more direct, but, I'm with,
That's our request, that was our request, but
Yeah.
But-
again, I think we're here because management has decided that this is the better path, or the path that
But
they
I
would like
think
to
you guys
see.
are also looking at.
if I remember correctly, that's
all
exactly what they were
downtown
asking for.
right? All
To have
phases,
a
not just
different
parking.
committee
A downtown ad
for
hoc.
that.
Yeah, it's a round table, it would be a little more.
I'll be, you know, the 3 or 2 and a representative group of stakeholders, that works too. We need to get started, folks. We really do. You know, if we can't agree tonight, we may be on a month, 2 months,
3 months.
or 3 months. You know, we really need to get started. So if it means a subcommittee and we don't have any, you know, we're advisory to an advisory, that's what we have to do. And we do need to.
But you guys move it forward.
Yeah.
Sure, go ahead.
If we create an ad hoc committee, we will be violating ordinances, policy, and everything. We will be relinquishing our authority here. I don't think we have that power.
No, you can't create an ad hoc committee.
We don't.
Well, that's what they're saying. That's what Mr. Canales just said.
No, that's what they're asking for.
Well-
I'm not saying that, you know, when they presented it.
They're asking for us to support the formation of a downtown ad hoc parking
Yes.
committee.
Okay.
Support it. If we support it, then they say, okay, well, we've got your support, we'll take it to council, council has to form it.
That responsibility has already invested to us.
Yes,
If
sir,
it already
yes.
exists,
Yes, sir.
why remove it? We cannot relinquish that. We don't have the power to do that. We, as the council,
No, but
committee.
the council has the power to.
To take it away from them.
Council,
Yes.
the city council does that, but we're not the city council. We're
Well,
the
what
representative.
they're asking for is for our blessing, so that
Yeah.
council can form that.
Well, I
If
think-
we say yes, then they go
Well,
back to council.
I
If
think
we
they're-
say no,
They're approaching the wrong group. You should approach your city councilman.
they already have. The
Well,
thing-
then,
It's, I feel, and this is just my feel, that they do not want to disrespect this committee.
Okay.
So they're asking,
but we do not have that authority, Mr. Canales.
no, and we're not,
Okay.
we're not giving them that authority. They're just asking for us to say
Now,
kinda
as far as
yes,
the
and they will
committee-
go to
As far as the
council.
committee, we do have that.
I guess, if I can just.
Basically, what I'm saying, I'm sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
Basically, what I'm saying, Mr. Cuellar, is even if we say no, they can still go to council
Of
and
course.
council can form
Oh,
it.
of course they do
So
that.
basically what they're saying is, don't get mad at us,
They're
guys.
barking at the wrong tree.
That's,
I
that's basically
I want to
it.
remind you of the name that you have, is the Transportation Traffic Safety Advisory.
Advisory.
The advisory is, you would advise us, staff, on initiatives you want to do.
Right,
locations,
but here-
But also part of that is also you're appointed by your councilman to represent them.
Right.
So you take whatever you hear here and go back to your councilman and
Get
say,
his blessings,
Councilman,
your blessings."
in my
Right.
opinion, we believe this is what we should do, and then that gets pushed that way.
We ourselves are not even an ad hoc committee.
But your purview, according to the ordinance, is already for parking.
Right, right. It's part of our
Yeah.
agenda.
Okay, let's come to order. So certainly if there's any additional discussion to be held, we can, please let me know and we'll continue discussion. But assuming that discussion has been held, the possible action on the floor is to.
I move to form a 3-member subcommittee of our 9 members that would specifically focus on downtown parking.
Second,
Okay, and for clarity, in the discussion phase of the motion, this is not an ad hoc committee, correct? This is a subcommittee?
of our
our own committee.
Okay. So, a motion that has also been seconded on the floor is that a 3-person subcommittee be formed to address the stakeholders of downtown issues. For any further discussion? Hearing none, I will open for vote. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed with nay. Motion carries.
That's the start.
So, it is.
That's the
So,
start.
all right.
Doesn't mean that we've selected the 3.
That's right,
I
but
think
we have an approach. We have an approach. Very
We're on the
good.
start.
Nice spirited discussion, we like that. Okay, well, before we move on, let's talk about, are there any volunteers that want to be included in the? Okay, Erica, would you mind?
I think what we need to do, my recommendation is that we assign staff to poll our full members.
That's a good
And those
idea.
all in interest.
Interested, yeah.
Submit just an email in it saying I'm interested, or text or hour. And with that, we get the full consensus of our group of those that might be interested.
Great
At
idea.
our next meeting, we bring forward those interested, and then we can choose and select from there.
Okay,
Just a suggestion, in an effort to get it going, this is not a formal thing you're forming, so if you want to have 2 volunteers like you had earlier, they could start, and then next month you could
Get one more.
give 1 more or whatever. It's up to you, like I said, but I know that they're anxious to.
That way it
get
gets
these things
started,
looked
good
at.
night.
Yeah, because, like, we struggle for a quorum today, we may not have one next month, so, just a suggestion.
okay. Of members present tonight, Mr. Cuellar mentioned interested. Erica, you have that note as well?
In the interest of moving forward, I'd be willing to help on a temporary basis right now until a permanent group is chosen. So temporarily for this next month to maybe get them started and working with them.
Okay,
We can work on that behalf, and then we can poll everybody and then make it go
All right.
And
forward.
we'll do that, doesn't,
Okay, that way it's not
That way the
permanent
ball
thing.
gets rolling.
Okay,
we won't, everybody.
okay. Much appreciated. Thank you for
Like I
volunteering.
said, we'll do it.
okay.
Great, thank you.
Okay,
I don't know if you want to move on to the,
so that was number 6. We're going back to number 4 for the resignation of Chairman Joe Barron. I wasn't aware of that, but he submitted his resignation. Okay. So,
I moved to, I guess you cited personal reasons or whatever, so I moved to accept the resignation.
Second.
okay. Motion and second. Any discussion? All those in favor of accepting Mr. Barron's resignation with aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, nay? Motion carries.
Mr. Quick,
Yes,
what district are you representing?
5,
Oh,
Vilma.
okay. You replaced, who was that?
I don't know, I replaced those two.
Okay, so
is it?
formally we accept the resignation.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so, great.
It's not on the agenda, but I was going to ask if did we want to open up any discussion from stakeholders tonight, or is that out of order?
I mean, it was the discussion on, I guess, it doesn't say forming, but an ad hoc committee. Since you've got your people already, I guess they would meet with him separately and there's blessings.
Would you like to take 5 minutes and just give us a summary of what the topics are right now?
Well, they're on the report. What I'd like to do is maybe work on a date that we can meet and set that up. There's, in particular, we'd like to look at, or exercise that look-back period to get feedback from our stakeholders, our merchants, to see what the impact of the rates are. That's one. I think we'd want to work on the wayfinding plan to get that and understand how that's going to be procured and what the timeline is. Probably we could get that from staff. And then the other important piece is understanding a little more about overnight parking, which also kind of requires a look back how that's been impacted in certain areas of downtown. And particularly these rates were increased in different areas, hot spots, right? So we want to give that feedback. There are other things that we would probably speak to once we have more participation from stakeholders. But that's most of the central issues. Some of it is rate. The mobile app will be important, understanding timeline for that. So this is generally, kind of speaking off the cuff what would be important for us to come back with. Potentially, we have a meeting in between this one and your next one. We could come back with some suggestions to this group about how, what may need to be pushed quicker on that study, or what needs time, or what needs more study, whatever. We all know it's a good plan. I mean, all of us, at least most of our stakeholders, have read the study. It's a good study. It's just a matter of getting activated with it. That's as much as I could say tonight.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Well, now, sorry for the interruption, or for deviating from the
If you would,
agenda.
just reach out to traffic department to get numbers for
Sure.
both of us, and if you don't have them, and then we can start setting up
Sure.
times to meet and all that.
Very good, thank you.
Okay?
Good idea.
Okay, it's not on the agenda, but do we need to replace Mr. Brown?
It's on there.
It is?
Number 6, election of a committee chairman.
Oh, I thought that was the subcommittee
Yeah.
chairman.
Huh?
I thought that ad hoc committee was going to have a chairman.
Oh, no. No.
Okay. Well, let's move to that, and then we'll come back to the staff reports if that's not
Move up item number 1 of section 6.
okay. Actually, I believe that motion was already, it was the entirety of section
Section
6
6.
was moved forward, so we can move straight forward to election of a committee chairman. I'll certainly offer my volunteer for that if the committee so decides to support that decision. Not required. I can maintain vice chair as well, but
You're doing a fine job.
thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Just because you don't want to do it. So I guess I don't know what the exact proper steps are, but I'll start with the motion.
So move.
Okay. And first and second. Any discussion on considering appointing or what's the term? Nominating Mr. Akers as committee chair? That's kind of odd, isn't it?
Third person.
Or any discussion of anyone else interested in chair? Hearing none, we'll move to vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Welcome to chairman.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Appreciate it. So we now need a vice chair. Anyone want to raise their hand for that one?
So bad.
We need one. I travel for work, as you guys know, so we need one.
Me too.
I would like
I
to.
move to vote for Mr. Salvador Mercado as a potential vice chair. I know he's not here. Since you're not here.
That's what you get?
You've been nominated.
Yeah. I don't know. Let's see. Mr. Mercado. I'm trying to place,
I welcome the opportunity to serve as vice chair if y'all need one.
I would like to nominate Mr. Puig as candidate for vice chair.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor of Mr. Puig being vice chair of the committee? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
Now we need a secretary.
Now we need a secretary. I would like to nominate Miss Selena Costabella as secretary.
Does she have to be present or no?
Does she? I don't know. Does
We
she?
can choose a secretary when next
Yeah,
meeting.
at the next meeting.
Next meeting.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay,
Let's table
that's a
that.
good idea. That's a good idea.
Let's table that.
She's always interested in discussion, and she's participated, brought a lot to the
Great.
committee, so I think she'd be a great candidate.
Okay.
Okay, very good. Moving right along. So next we have staff reports, item 5. First being discussion on intersections with high volume of panhandlers.
Hopefully you recall, we discussed this previously, I think it was our last meeting.
Yeah.
In November? No, October? We went back and looked at what other cities are doing and brought back some recommendations, but if, I guess you would indulge me, one of the things we need to look at is, there's some constitutional issues that come with this. You cannot single out any certain class of persons, that kind of thing. So I took some liberty in downloading from simple versions to more elaborate. I'll give you an example. The city of Wilmington, North Carolina, has one that's this big, and it just talks about the person, and I'll just get to the parts as in the interest of public safety, in order to be both pedestrians and motorists, no person shall walk, stand, or sit on a traveled portion of the street or median, or lean into any traveled portion, okay, to solicit employment, business, or contributions. That's the real simple version. Okay. Something a little bit more elaborate, I found in Houston. And as you can see, it's the typical whereas and all that kind of stuff. What I do want to point out is they have an ordinance for blocking streets, sidewalks, and entrance to buildings all here. But as it pertains to the streets, what I thought was very unusual, and as I thought was something that we might want to entertain here, and I'll read this to you. It says, there's section 3, and I'm going to read it verbatim. It says, the city council encourages all Houston municipal court prosecutors to exercise considerable prosecutorial discretion in prosecuting violators of this ordinance. So they're basically saying, let's not be so aggressive. I'm going to use a word that was recently used in these things, and start, enforcing it with some latitude. I guess that's the main thing. So in theirs, they specifically call out that the person shall not be on the street, on the curb, anything related to in the median.
Mm-hmm.
I think you've heard my views about this, is that we have the Vision Zero initiative for the city, and that's what we're doing with the parking, and this is kind of the next step for me, is we're trying to stair-step our way to eliminate all pedestrian-related fatalities. Okay, we'll work on the move violations with the police. But in an effort, you've heard if you remember, we talk about people doing the boot brigades and collecting money for different causes and that kind of thing. So on these ordinances, it eliminates all that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to get your opinion on which way we want to go, whether we want to start eliminating these things, but we get into the Constitution about allowing somebody to go out there raising money for a certain thing, and then that's someone that's maybe possibly homeless or that kind of thing, to allow them to pull a permit, it may be ruled unconstitutional because they don't have the means to do it. So I thought I would want to push, wrong word again, encourage, is just eliminating those things. There's, it puts an onus on the driver to have to avoid these people that turn their backs to traffic. Just the other night, I almost got very close to somebody that just came out, they're wearing dark clothes and that kind of thing. So In my opinion, as a traffic engineer, there's really no reason to allow these things. If you want to start getting into whether a person is qualified to be in there and wearing vests and old enough and that kind of thing, it also has detrimental effects to our congestion. You know, our traffic signals, most of them are oversaturated. The last thing we need is more people trying to give a dollar and forcing everyone to miss that cycle. So there's just a lot more negatives, but of course, the most obvious one is that we have people standing in between cars where they have no defense against those cars.
So all of those groups that you mentioned, those do fall into the category of panhandlers.
Yes. Yeah, anybody selling, collecting in the street is there. So what I like to do is the reason I didn't draft an ordinance yet is I want to get your opinions on which way we want to go. And then we can draft one for next time and then you can take a look at it. But I really feel real strongly that we should not allow, because in looking more at constitutionality, is if you start allowing one group and not another one, you start creating a disbalance.
Isn't panhandling a form of solicitation?
It's another way of calling it.
We already have ordinance against solicitation.
Yes.
So, now I know of 3 deaths, because I live in an area in the old Carlton Road where they concentrate. And I know of 3 deaths caused because they were panhandling. Now, I've had very, very close calls, like you say, dark close. Now, many of them are under the influence or something. They are a threat to themselves and they're a threat to others, and that's the drivers. So why we tolerate it, why the police turn the other way, because I see them. They blame it that under the expressway, that's DPS. DPS, no, that's the city of Laredo. I've seen female officers, and only female, I don't know why, on Calton Road in McPherson issuing citations. I've never seen a male officer issuing citations.
So if, on like major intersections, so McPherson, Del Mar, you know, you'll see Boy Scout troops and sport.
Yes.
Do they just choose the Saturday and they go there and show
No.
up themselves? Or they have to? Do they ask?
Right now that I'm aware of, there is no permit.
Yes, sir. You have to apply for a permit. You have to have at least 2 persons that can do CPR, and you have to have the vest. There are very, very strict requirements for you to participate in a bucket brigade.
I wasn't aware of it.
But now there's some that do it illegally. Why they're not cited, I don't know.
I just wonder what would happen if 2 groups showed up at the same time.
No,
Fight for
they're
cover.
very well regulated, sir. They're very well regulated by the city, and they have all kinds of requirements. Why they don't apply them to panhandlers, I don't know. I heard something that they wanted to give them vests so they could see them at night.
It's still dangerous.
You know, when they started selling newspapers on Saturday mornings, the first thing they were cited because they were soliciting. Little did they know, LPD, that's the only exception in the ordinance. That paper boys standing in a corner, sending newspapers is an exemption. Not panhandlers walking in the middle of the lane, breaking windows. I mean, that's ridiculous.
So
Well, and that's the, I guess the area we want to tread into is thinking panhandlers are homeless. It's not the same thing. Okay,
not at all.
that's not the same thing. We do not want to go to saying homeless or whatever. That is unconstitutional to go there. So that we don't want to make class distinctions. We want to keep it fair for everybody.
Sure. My personal view, I really don't like any. I have more sympathy for someone who appears to be struggling with their social situation in life than, you know, the Boy Scout troop, because I just feel like they're putting those kids in danger. They're putting those officers in danger.
Everybody's in danger
You know,
when they're in the street.
exactly. So
Everybody's in danger.
I'm biased, but I am trying to force myself to keep an open mind because.
I'm a retired state social worker, and there's no reason why anybody in America should be out there asking for food, because everybody, we're a very generous nation, and Laredo has the highest rate of people on income assistance. I think it's a way of life, in my opinion, that those people have chosen,
Well,
because they're
again-
eligible for all these benefits.
Again, we're generalizing, I think, too much, because that's why I asked the question about panhandlers. Everybody, anyone for any reason that would request money at a stoplight falls into this category. So it's not just those people, it's anyone asking for money, for whatever, for good causes and for personal use. It's all in here.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make an appeal to you to, through the support of this committee, that we advise staff to develop a simple ordinance for working with panhandlers in Laredo.
And let me just add one other, and I highlighted it and I forgot to read it to you, but like I said, this is not to try to make arrests, issue whatever, and this is something else that Houston had, and I really liked it. It says, no police officer shall issue a citation, make an arrest, or otherwise enforce this section against any person unless the officer first requests or orders a person to refrain from alleged prohibited conduct and the person fails to comply. So the policeman will go up to the person and say, you cannot be doing this. Oh, I didn't know, officer, thank you very much, I'm gone. No citation. It's only if they refuse.
Of course.
Yeah.
Right.
So I really like the way that Houston wrote this. Like I said, it gives you a lot of latitude of how to enforce it, and it's not, a hammer. It's really more protecting the officer.
The only thing that I'd like to be concerned with is not limited to intersections. Because then, if we limit it to intersections, then people start going mid-block and start doing the...
This
Okay.
specifically talks about, let me read this to you. It says, it should be unlawful for any individual to impede the use of a roadway, okay? Now I need to read you the definitions. Impede means to render the use of roadway unreasonably, and I highlighted that, difficult or dangerous, okay? The other part is roadway itself. Roadway means the portion of a street improved, designed, or ordinarily used for vehicular traffic, and includes any medians or any raised paved surface within the roadway. So it's not intersections, it's anywhere on the roadway.
That's good.
And like I said, I thought they did a marvelous job with this one. It's the best one I found. It says unreasonably difficult or dangerous. So it's up to the discretion of the officer saying, hey, you're making cars go around you, that's unreasonable.
Okay, well,
Mr. Akers,
yes.
And I stayed behind for this one. Was chair of the Laredo Homeless Coalition for, I don't know, 17, 18 years. And part of the discussion that city council took on two meetings in a row had to do with panhandling, one, and the other issue of the detox facility and things that are related to it. There are things that other cities are doing, which are to basically put signage that encourages folks to give in a way that's safer, which is to give to a nonprofit group. But ultimately, where Mr. McGee started is correct. Although I agree there is a public safety issue, no question. And I agree with Mr. Guajardo nodding about it's everybody. It's unsafe. Even with those that are wearing vests, it's just an unsafe situation. But we do need to be mindful of that Supreme Court ruling that assures that we don't restrict a person's speech both in requesting assistance and in giving, right? So we can disagree whether it's meaningful or whether it's the right way to do it. The Supreme Court cases that have been shot down are where you start targeting specific groups or classes, right? So I think there could be a way to restrict, to look at safety. City Council discussed it at length for about 30 minutes at their last council meeting. I was not present, but another member of a social service group, Holding Institute, Mike Smith, was present, and encouraged staff to also involve stakeholders in a conversation. So there's been subset of stakeholders in the social service world that have looked at this before, including myself, small groups, that we've had attorneys that have looked at it with us, also public camping, which doesn't come under this committee. But there is a way to try to make it safer, and doing the research with ordinances, like what Mr. McGee's doing, we've done that. There's other cities that have done stuff. Indianapolis has a decent policy as well, where you can formulate and stick to safety. The minute we start looking at a class of folks and generalizing homeless or, then that's where,
Exactly.
but I think if we work together on something, we can read something that makes it safer. The issue we're gonna face, and you're gonna face it, is there's nonprofit groups that are getting permits that are gonna react to this, that are gonna say, well, we're sourcing $2,000 a weekend off of a corner, and now we can't do it because there's a new ordinance. But that's the reality, you're
They'll
gonna
have to do plate sales or
yeah,
something.
so, but I just wanna offer my, and you don't need to form a subcommittee, I'll be glad to come and give you my input, and I'll invite a couple of other people that are interested. We'll give you the input while you're having this meeting, and then you guys can decide what you wanna formulate. We'll share what the research we've done, and you guys can look at it and go from there.
And it would be ideal to have those committees represented during the formulation of the ordinance, so that their voice is heard and it's put into that.
Just if you want to go back and look at the video of the last meeting, when we talked about this, council was ready to direct staff to come up with an ordinance already. But fortunately, we have been proactive enough to already have been talked about this. So I said, hey, we already talked about this, let's go back and get a recommendation. So that's why I want to draft up an ordinance, bring it to you guys, get input where we can, and then that we can.
Well, why don't we go ahead and proceed then?
No, good one.
Per Mr. Prigg's, or let's say, per Vice Chair's recommendation, we'd like to ask the staff move forward to prepare an ordinance, and please consider all items discussed, that the concern for,
Yeah, I'll meet with Mr. Rogers. He's a wealth of knowledge on that, so.
and keep the write-up of the ordinance within the confines of traffic safety.
Yes, that's the only angle we're looking at this from.
Okay, great. Next item 2, under staff reports, discussion on how Don't Block the Box campaign has helped Austin.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Well, I put a lot of information together. Okay. Mr. Chairman, so this is again a Vision Zero initiative. And something that I guess we point or look to Austin as a one that kicked this off in Texas, and San Antonio followed shortly after. So Austin has this information on their website, and so there's a state law, the Texas Transportation Code, this section here, which basically says stopping in the intersection is illegal. And we have this in our manual uniform traffic control devices: do not block the intersection. And this is how we implement these signs, and we have guidance for markings to indicate as such, do not, and even wording, do not block the intersection. And so all of this is an option for us now. And so Austin has taken it a step further and passed an ordinance, which we're still researching. And they've adopted this sign that they post out there, and it's about getting the word out. A lot of advertisements and education, public education, social media, to let people know that this is happening. And so I found a lot of information on the media websites in reference to what Austin was doing, what San Antonio was doing, and they even specify specific intersections of where they're going to be, where the enforcement is. And so enforcement is out there, and this is an example of the social media in San Antonio, and this is the San Antonio Police Department's Facebook, and so they're promoting this for everyone's knowledge. And so Vanessa's got, I'm sorry, Erica got some data, some statistics of the numbers on the citations, and they've proven to go down. And there's, let's see,
Is that statistic, are you assuming it's going down because?
As from the citations that were being issued,
So is it that the volume of citations spiked and then decreased? Is that how it worked?
Yeah, they compared the data from before, like how many vehicles were actually parked in the intersection
Mm-hmm.
versus when they started issuing citations, those numbers dropped down, like the percentage of people actually stopping in the intersections.
If I can interrupt for a second, and just to give you an example how we would do it here is the way San Antonio did it. When they first came out, Robert's right, Austin started this in 2015, right?
that sounds about
Yeah,
right.
and then 2017, San Antonio, and the way they did it, there's a list of 10 intersections that they picked because the citation is much higher than on a regular blocking the intersection. I think they do $500, is that right?
Was it just visual counting? They would count when it would happen, so an individual, or I'm interested to,
But
what
the count, I
methodology?
didn't look into that. I think Robert and Erica did that. But they just picked 10 intersections that they felt were critical,
Mhm.
or they were having a lot of accident problems, those kind of things, which is what we would do. We would come back with a list of saying, here in Laredo, we would like to try this at these 10 intersections. For instance, we have a lot of gridlock. You know, some of it is unseen, I guess, symptoms or consequences of blocking intersections. I'm sure you've seen those kind where the signals aren't coordinated correctly some time of day, they block it, and then it starts creating a lot of frustration, and then all of a sudden you start seeing a lot of red light running. So those are the unintended consequences of that. So we would come back to you with a list of the intersections we felt were the ones that we wanted to start this on. And hopefully that we would show you what's happening with it, maybe some numbers or some photographs, whatever the case may be. Sorry, Rob.
Yeah, no, that's all good information, and I just want to make sure you understand what it is when they say don't block the box. It's and the consequences of that. They even have a video for the public service announcements, if you care to watch that. I could play that for you, I don't know if that's a good idea or not.
Sure, good play.
Sure, yeah, it's a short video.
Hey, Scott, how's it going, man? Pretty good, man. How's work? That was alright, but I can't wait to listen to some music and blues on the green, though. Right on, man. Let's go. Let's do it! Woo! Come on, this is the third green light. We haven't even moved an inch. Oh, I just want to be jamming out already. Alright, here we go. Scott, what the heck, man? We didn't have any room. It was mostly clear. We've been stuck at that light for 3 minutes, and I didn't want anybody honking behind us because we weren't moving. Who cares what they think? Now we're blocking an entire lane, and people have to walk around us.
You're in the way, hello?
Sorry. Right now, we're the traffic. Just think of the tunes, man. We're that much closer. We're not much closer at all. And now we're causing traffic all down Waterloo. Just go around me. Just go around me. Sorry. This is embarrassing. Blues on the green, here we come. Oh, come on! Are you kidding me? Man, really? That was an opening! What the heck?
Don't be a Scott. Don't block the box. Blocking traffic is illegal, unsafe, and makes traffic worse. So be considerate, not a Scott. Visit austintexas.gov/don't-block-the-box for more information.
Whoa, wait here. And just wait until you see the cars moving forward. The person behind me is gonna honk, I know it. Let him honk. We don't want to block the box, bro. Nailed it. Congrats. I mean, it's only what the majority of people do every day. Good for you, I guess. I'm not listening to you. Blues on the green, here we come.
And like Robert said, you know, at the very top, he's got the Vision Zero logo. You know, that's a consequence for pedestrians. You block the crosswalk, and they have to walk around. So that puts them right in the middle of the intersection.
Looks like a good initiative.
So what we like to do, like I said, is come up with an ordinance for it, and then the list of intersections where we want to implement this, and then we can do it as a trial or whatever we can work out with the police department and see where we go from there.
Sounds good.
Okay. We have one other item, item 8. Discussion on impact fees.
That one can be a real quick conversation or a long one. You heard me mention several months ago that I'm working, and I'm really kind of embarrassed I haven't brought to you yet, is the traffic impact analysis ordinance. The reason I hadn't is because you do a traffic impact analysis and it says you need to have a street big enough to do this, and that. Depending on where your piece of property is, you could be required to do a 2-lane street or a major thoroughfare. One of the ways of trying to be equitable with landowners is impact fees. And the reason I bring that up is because, like I said, say you happen to have 10 acres somewhere and it's just the wrong location, you're going to have to dedicate a lot of a right-of-way and build a large street. And you're basically building it for somebody else that's coming down the road. So one of the fixes of that is our impact fees. I went to a workshop. FHWA actually has a whole book on it and ways of capturing value that the city builds. What I want to do is at this conference that I went to, the city of Austin has been working on their impact fee for transportation for 2 or 3 years already. So it's not going to be a real quick solution. It's going to take a while. Now theirs took a little bit longer because they had some breaks in the action there, and they stopped for a while. And then this, the city already has impact fees for water and sewer, so they've done it before. They had to hire a consultant to do this because the state requires you to come up with values and come up with an impact fee that you're going to use for a certain area of town versus another one, because you can have different impact fees depending on if the city's trying to push development a certain way, that kind of thing. So it is going to take a while. It's probably something I have to take counsel and see if we can get some money to get a consultant down here. So it is going to, so while that's going on, then I will be working on bringing you the traffic impact analysis ordinance hopefully for next time. So I said it's just,
Does the scope of the creation of this consider, the negatives of kind of being prohibitive to investment and growth?
yeah. Part of what the consultant will do is they'll analyze the positives, negatives, and the areas of town and all that kind of. Like I said, it is a long process, so it's not something that we can just say, yeah, we're going to vote on putting this number and that's it. It's got a state law dictates that we have to do that.
Okay.
So for next time, I will bring you, well, hopefully I will bring you the traffic impact analysis ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. McGee, for the update. Okay, that brings us to the end of the agenda. Robert's Rules allows us to adjourn based on completing the agenda, so we stand adjourned.